Monday, December 7th. It is 7:31 p.m. and we do have a quorum. Hi, everyone. For those who don't know, I'm Rob Klee, the chair of the Woodbridge Town Plan and Zoning Commission. Other members of the commission that are with us here tonight are Paul Schatz, Andrew Skolnick, Jeff Kennedy, and Yoni Zamir. We may have Kathleen Wallace joining us by 8 o'clock. We are operating here remotely under the auspices of the governor's executive orders to prevent the spread of coronavirus. So we thank you all in advance for your patience. I also ask that folks who are not, if you have not done so already, please mute your computer audio so we don't get background noise. Appreciated. Tonight's regular meeting is a very full agenda. Thank you, Chris Sullivan, our town land use analyst and zoning enforcement officer, who is ably supporting us. We got a lot to cover. So we're going to have our continued public hearing first on the Woodbridge Village Associates application and their request for a zoning regulation amendment regarding an active adult community. And then we're also going to have a public hearing on attorney Bernard Pellegrino's application to amend section 3.3 HH 3A relative to the distance locations for package stores. And we're going to have new business, including the applications from New England Brewing Company related to 1710 Litchfield Turnpike, and a work session. And I've probably forgotten something, but that's enough for now. I will try to get us out of here by 10 o'clock, I hope. Will be our goal. So let's get started on our public hearings. As a reminder, we operate under the statutory framework regulating land uses and through Connecticut's General Statutes 8-2, which has general objectives on a whole bunch of things. It's worth a read, but it includes, among others, promoting health and general welfare, encouraging the most appropriate use of land throughout our town, and encouraging the development of housing opportunities. So we have before us in both our public hearings to propose text amendments. We have a thorough process about these proposed amendments, and we analyze to see whether they achieve the objectives of zoning law under Connecticut law and properly use those laws to guide the future development of our community. So we're going to start with a continued public hearing from the Woodbridge Village Associates application and attorney John Nuff. We're going to have the applicant here present first. Then after the applicant's presentation, we're going to go to see if there's anyone in the public who wishes to speak, and they will have 3 minutes each for those who do. And they can use the raise hand function on our WebEx. Then we're going to have our questions from our commission members after the public goes. So we'll start with Attorney Nuff. Go right ahead.
Terrific. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, my name is John Nuff. I'm an attorney with an office at 147 Broad Street in Milford, Connecticut. I'm here tonight on behalf of Woodbridge Village Associates. The applicant, as you notice, is an application to amend the zoning regulations to make active adult communities a permitted use in the Development 1 zone. As we noted last month, Woodbridge Village is the owner of property located at 1710 and 1722 Litchfield Turnpike, as well as 49, 53, and 57 Bradley Road. All those parcels are in the Development 1 zone, and they total about 15 acres, about 8.3 on the south side of Bradley Road, and slightly less than 7 on the north side of Bradley Road. As you noted, Mr. Chairman, your agenda this evening has a number of applications for receipts for the southern portion of the property on the south side of Bradley Road for New England Brewing. As we noted at the hearing last month, this application is designed to facilitate the development of the south side with the New England Brewing facility. Very quickly, at the last hearing, but the only concern that we heard from the commission, I think, is primarily from Commission Member Wallace, was whether there's going to be a site plan permitted use or special exception permitted use. And we are happy to make the change to make this a special exception. And I have submitted to Chris a revised table that provides that this would be a special exception use as compared to a site plan permitted use. Also, since the last meeting, Chris noted that Marianne Dubuque is with us this evening. She and I had a couple of very pleasant conversations. She had made some recommendations with regard to providing a little more framework to the regulation. And so we made some changes, or I made some changes that are all very straightforward, but provides the commission with a little greater certainty in going forward should this application be approved. So Chris, either if you or either I could share the screen just so I can take the commission through the changes that we proposed.
There you go, John.
Okay. So very quickly, just to demonstrate, if you can see my cursor, there's now an SC under Dev 1 for active adult communities, indicating this would be a special exception permitted use as compared
We can't see your screen.
See your screen.
It's not, all we see is you.
Okay, sorry about that. Let me see.
And while you're doing that, I welcome Kathleen Wallace. Thank you for joining us.
Here we go. How's that? Can you see my screen now?
Nope.
Nope.
Share content.
There we go. It's getting there.
Okay, terrific. My apologies. All right, so as I noted, I won't bother showing you the grid or the table, but I changed the S to an SC under Development 1 for active adult communities. And the other changes that we made are here, outlined in blue or in blue type. We added a purpose, and that is to provide meaningful options for housing opportunities for all active adults ages 55 and older in a development setting that maximizes traditional neighborhood atmosphere with pedestrian access to retail and other commercial uses. We also added a little more of a definition of an active adult community. Shall be a development where occupancy is age restricted to persons who are 55, who are A, 55 years of age or older, B, a spouse of any such occupant, including the surviving spouse of such occupant, or the spouse of any occupant who has permanently relocated to a care facility, or C, a child of an occupant who complies with this section 3.3 pp.1 and who is 19 years of age or older, and then the balance is the same. This is nearly identical to the regulation that was in place as of 2007 with regard to who qualifies as a resident of an active adult. The next change we made is in section 2. Again, so the former or the existing language plus the new proposed is in the event of a conflict between the standards and requirements of this section and annual provision of zoning regulations, other than the requirements set forth in 333 and 334 below, upon written request, the commission shall have the authority to waive by majority votes any such provision to accomplish the purpose of the AAC. The applicant shall demonstrate to the satisfaction of the commission or duly authorized agent that approval of the waiver request will not cause an adverse impact on surrounding properties or public health and safety. So 333 and 334 are the actual bulk requirements. So here we see 333, we made a revision to A, minimum acreage, which we increased from 5 acres to 6. I think you'll recall at the last hearing, I had indicated that I think this will be the only parcel now that will meet this requirement of a minimum of 6 acres in the Development 1 zone. And we've also added this the same density that we had back in 2007, which is a maximum density of 10 units per acre. We made a specific provision under 334 that this could be either rental or a condominium development. We had left it open as of the original version, but we're making explicit now that it could be either rental or a common interest community. And then the last is the addition that any active adult community shall be served by public water and sewer. And I think this was a excellent idea by Marianne, because she was concerned about the possibility that someone in another part of Woodbridge could revise their zone from a residential zone to development one, and then try to take advantage of this new regulation. And this will ensure that this is only located in areas that are served by public water and sewer, which is obviously in the village area. So, that's pretty much it. So you'll recall that at the last hearing, we said this is a very straightforward amendment that's designed to help facilitate the development of the southern parcel on Bradley Road for the development of New England Brewing. With Mary Ann's help, these are some other changes to provide further guidance to, frankly, us or any applicant for the north side, and gives added assurance and certainty to the commission with regard to the confines of a proposed development on the north side. Happy to answer any questions or give you any background about these proposed changes to the amendment.
Thank you very much, Attorney Nuff. And I'll have the commission members hold for just a moment while we ask for public comment. And before I do, I wanted to let folks know that I believe all the relevant documents related to this application are available, on the town website. Is that correct, Chris?
Yes, it is. And we should also note for the record that this was referred to the Regional Planning Commission of the South Central Regional Council of Governments, and their staff had ruled that there wasn't any need for any comment because it doesn't directly abut any other municipality.
Great, thank you, Chris. And I saw that note or that letter in our package, and I assume that's also available on the website.
Yes, it is.
Great, so let's first open up.
Rob, before you go to public comment, I just got at least one text that said people had trouble, the public logging into the WebEx, and the error message was your meeting service had a problem processing your request. Please contact support or your administrator. So I don't know if this was just one or two people, but I noticed that the attendee list is very small, and I wonder if people are having problems getting on.
Paul, thank you for bringing that to our attention. This would, Chris, be folks who have gone to the website and a link that's in the notice of our regular meeting.
That's what they would be using, yes. And I don't have any other administration rights other than opening this, so I'm not sure what else we can do. So I'm going to try to go into my emails to see if I've gotten anything.
So I'm looking at the notice.
So Larry has been trying to get in.
Chris, it's John Duff. When I try to get in as a participant, I could not get in, but I got in as a member of the public. So perhaps if anyone else is trying to get in, that's what they could be instructed to do, is to go in through the general route as compared to if they received a specific invite.
That's the only invitation that's offered. There's no panelist information provided to the public. Thank you for that idea. The only emails I've got are from Larry Greenberg, who said he's been trying to log in, but he can't. And Doug Gray said he's going to watch it on YouTube. So, and other than that, we have, as attendees, we've got Michelle Riley, whom I'm assuming may wish to speak, and Steve Wise is with Woodbridge Village. So I frankly haven't had much comment at all from the public, so it wouldn't surprise me that there's not much public attendance.
Yeah, it would be nice if we can get Larry Greenberg on, though, as a commission member.
Well,
Did you can you resend him the link, or?
I just forwarded the email that I had received from Chris, whatever it was, to Larry that had an invite. I assume the invite wasn't specific to me.
No, it was not.
So I just sent it to him. I just said FYI. So maybe it'll work.
When you get to public comment, Michelle Riley does have her hand raised, but I'm not unmuting her yet.
Yeah. And we see you, Michelle, and we thank you for having your hand raised. So give us just a moment. What to do? The information was posted. It was on our website. I'm not sure there's anything more we can do at this point. Although I would like to at least wait out of courtesy to try to get Larry on as a member of the commission. And Attorney Nuff, just on logistics, you managed to get through the normal public link by clicking on the website or the notice. Did that work?
Right. So the invitation that Chris sent out included both an invitation as a panelist as well as the general invitation that you could, I guess, the public could find. And so when I tried to join as a panelist, it did not join, but I was able to get in through the typical or the public link.
Kathleen, any response back from Larry Greenberg or no?
No.
Chris, is there a way for someone to dial in and just hear the audio at least?
That information is on the website and on the agenda.
I mean, perhaps while Commissioner Greenberg is trying to join via video, he can be directed to join at least for the audio portion.
Rob, I just got a text that the link that wouldn't work was the one that was in our meeting agenda on the website. So I don't know if it's just limited to one person or two people, but perhaps somebody else could, in someone's house, could try to log on to make sure that it's not an outage.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. The thing that I'm looking at our notice and the link on to the Woodbridge CT WebEx, there's an odd break in the sort of underlined hyperlink at the very end of the line when it goes over to the second line. I don't know if that could be the cause. It may be one of those deals where you have to copy and paste the whole thing into your web browser instead of just clicking the link.
So Doug Gray just mentioned he couldn't join through WebEx either, but he can watch through YouTube. So that information is also on the agenda and on the hearing notice.
Appreciate that.
It's also on channel 79 with Optimum Television. I believe there's a simulcast.
I guess, Rob, the question would be if there are additional public comments, there should be a forum for people to make them if they can't log on.
Yeah, and that's probably a question of our timing. And I also want to tell Michelle, I appreciate your patience while we're figuring these out. I know your hand is raised. perhaps we allow for written comment because, as always, our written comments that are received become part of the public record for our consideration of the application. The challenge is that means we can't resolve this one tonight. Is that we wouldn't be able to close the public hearing tonight? I believe that's the challenge we face.
If you were to allow other people to submit written comment, yes, you would need to leave the hearing open so that their comments could be considered.
Yep. The joys of technology. Why don't we allow Michelle Riley, who's been patiently waiting, to offer her public comments. And then we can ask our questions of Attorney Nuff, and perhaps by then folks who go to the public hearing website and try to copy and paste the WebEx link, we'll be able to perhaps get in then. But for public comment, I see that Michelle Riley has her hand up. Just so you know, this is our purpose here as a public hearing is to listen to your comments. You'll have 3 minutes. We will not be answering, either the commission members or the applicant will not be answering questions you raise, but your public statements and your comments will become part of the record for our consideration of the application. Reminder to everyone, off the record communication with a member of the commission on the merits of the application is prohibited. And away we go. Michelle, thank you very much.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. I appreciate the time. I am a Woodbridge resident. Obviously, I live on Landon Street. So my property abuts the Bradley Road portion of the land, the 15 acres. So I do have some questions. I understand that you can't answer them, but I would like to put them out there anyway. How soon, I guess, was my question on the construction. If we amend these zoning laws, and will buildings start right away? Has there been funding? I know in the past there hasn't been funding to get this 55 and over community going and up, and up and running. So I was curious to see how soon that would happen. And I also have some questions as a landowner, as a homeowner here in this district. The traffic for me is a big issue. I also want to talk when we get to the brewery section about traffic and the traffic study. I noticed that Landon Street was not a part of that, so I want to talk about that as well. The other thing I wanted to know is if the property owners in this area that will be affected by this construction will be notified. Will there be a special meeting? Will there be fences provided? Right now it's an open space behind my home and I love it. I have a small fence for my dogs, and it's been a beautiful, beautiful spot for us. With all this proposed development, I worry about the privacy, about noise, about pollution, frankly. And I think that those things should be addressed with the residents.
Great. Thank you very much, Ms. Riley. Are there any other members of the public who would like to participate? So,
Michelle, could you unraise your hand when you get a chance, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. So I uploaded I searched over to the PDF of our notice of public hearing, and to the extent that the WebEx link is not working, there is still audio conference information, so a phone number that folks could call in and dial into if they wanted to participate. So I seeing that and subject to the views of the other commission members, I think there are enough opportunities for the public to have participated tonight with that alternative audio conference information for those who wanted to dial in, and through that we would still be able to have let them come in and offer their public comments. Commission members, sort of thoughts or reactions before we
Did Commissioner Schatz advise the people who texted him that they could call in, participate by audio only? I tend to agree with the chairman.
I think it's a little risky, isn't it, to encourage individual communications of a commission member with members of the public, since we say we're not supposed to do that. I understand this is an emergency situation, but I'm just going to pose that question. The other thing is, I think, Rob, you had mentioned earlier, can we extend the hearing so that those who wish to watch the recorded event but haven't been able to participate in any way, and I'm also thinking of Larry, one of our members, such that we could ensure that full participation at a later time?
I think, so thank you, Kathleen. Appreciate both those comments. I think the later time is part of the question. Is that going to be another month out into our future, or a special meeting, which I know, particularly with the holidays, that we will struggle to find a date to do that. So there is.
Jimmy, Mr. Chair, for what it's worth, I mean, we obviously would really like to close the hearing this evening. I mean, I think we had sort of reasonable expectations, or reasonable at least hopes that perhaps we can even get a vote this evening. I understand that we want to make sure that there's a full and ample opportunity for the public to participate. As you noted, there is an alternative method for them to communicate, even if without video. They can certainly do so through audio. So, I mean, I think there has been an opportunity for people to weigh in, to participate. If we want to, I'd be happy to respond to Michelle Riley's comments. And I don't know if you want to hear from your town attorney, but perhaps there's enough for us to accomplish while we're waiting for others who may want to join via audio only, so they can give their thoughts if there are any other people who want to speak.
So I appreciate that, Attorney Nuff. So I am leaning towards us trying to complete this one tonight, and allowing some additional time for folks who may have switched over to the YouTube channel or are watching in general, to let them know that they can call in to the audio conference information that's on the hearing agenda tonight. And in the meantime, how about we move to questions from commission members and or Attorney Nuff's reactions to the comments from the public. Is that okay with our commission members? I see nods, though I only see parts of the screen because you're still sharing your screen, but that's okay, Jim. Attorney Nuff.
Sure. If it's okay, then I'll respond to Ms. Riley's several questions. So in terms of construction and timing and funding, we don't have a schedule yet. Obviously we've been at this for quite some time, many years, but obviously the goal is to get the regulation in place because it really makes no sense to do anything else or go to other expenditures in terms of engineering or anything else, before we actually have the zoning in place and we can actually make use of the north side, understanding that the town is very interested in seeing what's happening with the south side. In terms of traffic, I mean, I can only speak to our use. As you can imagine, an active adult residential community does not generate a lot of traffic. We didn't really have much in the way of traffic issues 7 or 8 years ago. Your own plan of conservation development notes that traffic in the area is reduced as compared to what it was in the past. But obviously, whether it's 40 units, 50, 60 units, we're now at, we're proposing 10 per acre, even 70 units of active adults, has a completely different peak hour than, retail and the busiest times on the streets. So, we don't think that our use is going to generate any negative traffic impacts. And certainly when we submit our special exception application, assuming this application is approved, then we'll have to submit a traffic study in line with that special exception application. And then in terms of impacts on the neighbors, privacy, noise, pollution, certainly a residential use, abutting another residential use, is probably the ideal situation and not any sort of commercial use. And obviously, we in the past, I know going back many years, we had a series of meetings with all of our neighbors, and I think that if we get to the point where we're submitting another special exception application for the development of the north side, we'd be happy to meet with Ms. Riley and all the other neighbors to describe what the proposed development is. So it is not in any way troubling or concerning the issues that you raised with regard to privacy, noise, or pollution, because at least on the north side, this is a completely residential use. No commercial activity of any kind would be proposed, or if there were, it'd be extremely modest and probably limited to the center of the site. But we have no plans of any kind for any commercial use on the north side. So I don't think there would be much of any impact on Ms. Riley or any of her neighbors.
Thank you, Attorney Nuff. I'd now like to open it up to our commission members if they have questions for the applicant. I think I saw Kathleen's hand up first, and then I'll go with Paul Schatz. No, Kathleen first, then Paul. Okay,
I have a question and a comment. I'll go with the comment first. I think actually that the comments made by, oh, wait a minute, I want to point out that Larry is on, but he's in as an attendee. Can he be added as a panelist? That's for Chris. I see him in the attendee list.
Changed him.
There we go. Okay. Hello, Larry. I think the comment of Michelle Riley, actually, because she's on Landon Street, has more to do with the next application than this application. Because the brewery is going to back onto Landon Street should it be approved. I don't believe that Woodbridge Village Associates will now, because it's only going to be north of Bradley Road, is going to impact Landon Street. So I make that comment, somebody can confirm it. My question is really for Chris. The last stipulation in the proposed amendment says that any active adult community shall be served by public water and sewer. So my question to Chris is this area already served by public water and sewer?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Those questions. Paul Schatz, did you want to go next? And Larry, I'm glad we finally got you on. It's good to have you.
It wasn't easy. It's great to see Larry Greenberg. So I just to reiterate, this zoning change has nothing specifically to do with any particular application. We're just discussing a quote unquote generic zoning change where there may be a future application. Is that correct?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. There's no site plan, no special exception. It is purely a text amendment to your regulations.
And in the handout that I have, and I heard you talk about changing the minimum acreage from 5 to 6, and I didn't hear, what was the history behind that?
At the hearing last month, I had indicated there was like 1, 2, 3. There's about 5 other parcels that could qualify under the regulation as it was drafted. And I believe that now this is actually 1764 Litchfield Turnpike exceeds 6 acres, but that would be the only other property in the Development 1 zone that would qualify for the minimum of 6 acres. And so we're taking 4 other parcels out of play by making the change from 5 acres to 6 acres. As you probably know, 1764 Litchfield Turnpike is the site of an existing office park, so very little likelihood that would change its use from office to active adults.
And in H, the maximum density,
Yeah.
what do our regs say now about maximum density, or doesn't it?
It says nothing about maximum density, and so we went back to the original, which was I call in the 2007 version. It was 10 per acre, and so we proposed to return to that. Our original submission did not include a maximum density. I mean, it's sort of as an aside. I mean, if you're asking me what's in the best interest of the town of Woodbridge in terms of what the density should be, I think you should be looking at 20 per acre. But I think that would help. You'd want as many active adults living in the village as possible to frequent the shops and restaurants and other retailers and other commercial uses in the town of Woodbridge. I understand that may raise some eyebrows, and so we propose to limit it pretty strictly at 10 per acre. And obviously the property is a little bit less than 7 acres, so you're looking at a maximum of 60 some units. I think you'd want as many people like, frankly, me and many other people who are on this call to be, relocating to the village. But but we propose 10 per acre as I think it's a very strict and modest sort of approach toward minimizing the number of units.
And one other question. In number 1, where you define what an active adult community is, in your experience, is that along the lines of the more standard and generic definitions across municipalities?
It is, yes. I mean, certainly you don't want to, most folks are going to be 55 and older, and both spouses are going to tend to be in the same general range, but certainly if one were to predecease the other and it was younger than 55, you wouldn't want him or her to be forced to move out of their his or her apartment. And then also, the 19 years of age or older was something that we had talked about at some length from what I recall in the early 2000s, because there was obviously the concern with regard to school-aged children in the Woodbridge school system. And so we have proposed a minimum age of 19, understanding that, folks who are in their late 50s, early 60s easily could have college-aged children who might be coming home to live with them during the summer. I mean, candidly, no one anticipated COVID back in 2007, and where you might have a college-age student living with you full-time and actually attending virtual classes. But that was designed, obviously, so that the town could rest assured that the Woodbridge school system wouldn't be inundated by younger people attending your high school. So it'd only be college-age students or older.
Any other questions, Paul?
Not right now.
Thank you, Paul. Other members of the commission? Jeff, I see your hand up. Go right ahead.
Thanks. Sure, thank you. Attorney Nuff, I have a question about paragraph 4. So that allows these units to be rental units or to be common interest community, which I understand to be condos, correct?
That's
Okay.
correct.
So my question runs to the latter part of the language in that paragraph. What would be the potential associated commercial uses of those units? What does that mean, please? And does that mean, for example, that someone could sublease a unit, or what would that mean?
No, I'm sorry. I mean, this is sort of the outgrowth of my discussions with Mary Ann, and I don't mean to point fingers, but it's really, I think, designed to provide a little bit of flexibility. As you probably know, in your regulations currently, active adult 55 and older is permitted in the Development 1 zone, subject to special exception approval, but it says the ground floor must be 20% retail. And so, or you actually describe it as 20% shop front facades. So in my discussions with Mary Ann, we decided that we may want to have the opportunity, should there want to be a small coffee shop or something like that to that effect. But no, the purpose is not to create some sort of I don't know, VRBO or anything like that in terms of subleasing or renting out your unit to the general public. It was only if there was an opportunity to provide some sort of convenience retail, small coffee shop or something like that. Understanding that we're not sure in which direction the development may go, but if we went from a townhouse type of community to maybe 3-story buildings, there might be an opportunity for a very small retail presence there. So Mary Ann made that suggestion based upon your existing regulation, and my client and I thought that was a great idea.
Thank you.
Great, Jeff. Any additional questions?
No.
Other members of the commission with questions?
If I may, I didn't understand your explanation for why under paragraph 3, subsection A, the reduction from minimum acreage from 5 to 6.
Right. So very, very simply, when we kept it at 5, there were about 5 or 6 different properties in the Development 1 zone that could qualify for an active adult. And to the extent that the commission wanted to limit the opportunity for active adult communities in Development 1 zone, I suggested at the hearing last month that you could increase the minimum acreage from 5 to 6, leaving only 2 parcels that could meet that requirement. Now, I mean, it's a topic for a bigger discussion for the commission as to whether or not you would in fact want to limit active adult communities in Development 1 zone. But if it was your desire, so to minimize the number of those types of communities in the village area of town, raising the minimum acreage would be a method by which you could do that.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Understanding, by the way, you can always go back. This is the legislative act. You could always go back and modify that again to raise it, to lower it. An applicant who owned 4 acres could come and modify it again, but you'd be acting in your legislative capacity, so you'd have a lot of discretion. So you certainly wouldn't be required to make that change. It was really just something for the commission's consideration.
Great. Thank you, Yoni. Other questions from commission members?
Rob, I should note that we have a member of the public, Cade Walker. I don't know.
Yep. No, Chris, I was going to get there. It looks like some folks were actually listening or watching on YouTube or whatever channel. So I was going to wrap up with our commission members, then go back to the outside public attendees who may have found their way through the links. So other questions from commission members? As you're thinking of any last ones, I had just a brief clarification, but I think I understood it from Paul Schatz's question that, again, this is a modification to our general regulations. Any proposal that would come in front of us would have to go through the special exception process, and that would be a place for the types of concerns raised by our public commenter and questioner, Michelle Riley. Those would be the types of questions and issues that might come up when there's a specific project going through the special exception process. Is that correct, Attorney Nutt?
That is correct, yes.
And then a question on density. We have 10 units per acre there. You mentioned 20. Is there a Do you have a sense of how other communities sort of approach this and their sort of density choice for these types of developments?
I mean, as you can imagine, I do a fair amount of work throughout the state. I mean, the range is fairly broad. I mean, you can imagine that in Stanford, it's the sky's the limit. But if you're looking at other suburban, more suburban sort of, towns, if you're thinking of like Fairfield or Trumbull or those types of communities, they tend to go a little more dense. And I think that, that there is a little bit of a learning curve that's taking place, not only throughout Connecticut, but throughout the country in terms of, that there are benefits in terms of density. We think about some of the most charming places that we visit. They have some things in common, one of which is density. If the goal is to increase property taxes, if the goal is to have people with disposable income, if the goal is to provide housing opportunities and housing flexibility for people who want to downsize in Woodbridge as well as surrounding communities, I think all those things militate in favor of having a higher density. But I also am very, very aware of the history of the site, the history of our relationship with the commission, and certainly we wouldn't want to overreach in any way. And so that's why, after a lot of thought and a lot of discussion, we decided to keep the density at 10 per acre, which is what it was in 2007. Again, that's not to say that the commission couldn't have its own deliberations and thoughtful discourse as to what the density should be, but we're proposing 10, and I've made my case as to why you may want to consider making it more dense, but we're happy to live with 10.
Thank you, Attorney Nuff. Any further questions right now from the commission members? Because I am going to go ask the public, now that we've gotten a few more members of the public, if they wanted to have their opportunity for their 3 minutes of public comment. So I know we added, it looks like Cade Walker and maybe Stephen Wise may have been added.
Steve Wise is with Woodbridge Village.
Oh, thank you. So I see Cade Walker's, the only symbol I'm seeing is there was an exclamation point, so I don't know.
Yeah, I can't seem to unmute him. There's, I don't know. There's nothing that allows me to unmute him. So.
Can you elevate them just to join the?
No, doesn't even let me make, oh, well, let me try. Panelists.
Mr. Chair, he may be here on the application that I'm involved with.
Okay.
I just had a client text me, call me actually, and said that he was here having a little trouble maybe unmuting himself, but I don't think he's here for this matter.
Okay.
Well, it looks like Cade Walker is now maybe unmuted. But
Panelist, so he should be able to speak.
Okay.
Yeah, can you hear me?
yes.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Mr. Walker. Are you here to talk about the Woodbridge Village Associates or a different matter?
Probably a different matter. It's I'm just new to the town and kind of want to pay attention to what's going on.
Okay, we really appreciate it and appreciate your patience with our technology. So if
Sorry,
you don't have
giant exclamation point on the screen.
if you don't have a public comment on the Woodbridge Village Associates matter, we'll thank you, but you should stay on. I don't know if Chris.
I'll just mute him and he can raise his hand if he wishes to speak.
Okay.
Okay.
On the next, sure. When the time is right for public comments. Thank you, Mr. Walker. Okay. Any further comments or questions for Attorney Nuff on the application before us? I don't see any, so I believe we can close this public hearing. is this something we should probably do a motion and
Yes,
a vote on? So do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
And do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Skolnick, and this is been moved and seconded. Any discussion on closing the public hearing for Woodbridge Village Associates, their application for a zoning regulation amendment regarding regarding active adult communities 55 and over? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, Attorney Nuff. Our public hearing is closed. So the comments and written materials in the record will be the basis of our deliberations, which we will take up at our business side of this meeting.
Thank you. Happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you. All righty. Appreciate everyone hanging in there. Next, and appreciate Attorney Pellegrino for your patience. We're going to now open up your public hearing on your application to amend section 3.3 HH 3A of the zoning regulations relative to the distance of locations to package stores. You have submitted materials that are available on the town website, and we have also received some comments, written comments on your hearing, which are also available there, and I believe have been distributed already to the commission members. So all relevant documents are where they're supposed to be. And again, we'll follow the same sort of run of show where we're going to start with you, Attorney Pellegrino, to make your presentation. Then we'll have the public speak, and then you'll have questions. You'll be able to react to the public and questions from our commission members. Away you go, Attorney Pellegrino.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Bernard Pellegrino. I'm an attorney with the Pellegrino Law Firm in New Haven. I'm the applicant, but I'm here on behalf of Mr. Stephen Shapiro. He's here at the meeting. Mr. Shapiro came to me probably 2 months ago, and he was desirous of opening a boutique kind of upscale liquor store in town. And he looked at various locations in your Development 1, GB, and B1 zoning districts. Those are the zones where retail package stores are permitted under your regulation. And I think it's safe to say that collectively, we looked at every possible site in those zones to locate a liquor store. And we kept bumping into obstacles presented by your separation distance regulation in section 3.3 H 3A1. The major culprit, if you will, the one that kept knocking us out of the box was that line in that section that requires a 500-foot separation distance from a single or multi-family resident. In those zones, if you look at, as I said, most, if not all of the sites, certainly ones with the potential availability for such a store, there's none. So we actually tried to get a variance and went to ZBA, but they said, and maybe correctly, that really it's a problem with the reg. It's not a hardship. It's that reg is just not really operating. You know, it's if you're going to permit liquor stores, but then you have a separation distance that knocks every site out, it's just not working. Maybe you should go to P&Z and see what you think. So we did, and we're basically asking just to delete that one item from the that section of your regulation. And what we did was we went and we looked in the COVID era online to compare what other towns in the state, and we focus kind of on the ones in your area. And what we found is that you're certainly novel in the fact that you have a separation distances from residences. Most of the regulations, if they have any separation distances at all, usually, historically, what I've seen in other towns and what our research showed is it's churches, it's schools, it's public buildings, it's libraries, that kind of thing. If they have them, it's typically those things, not residences, because as our research revealed in your town, you have non-conforming residences in your commercial zones. There's pockets of residential zones near your commercial zones. Your regulation measures from property line to property line. So if you have a larger commercial site, even though the store may be in the small corner of the plaza, but it's a larger property line, if you're 500 feet, the whole site is out. So I think, this reg is a carryover from, years past. It in part was part of a state statute. What I think the common trend over the last 20 years is most towns have curtailed or in many cases eliminated the separation distance other than the separation distance between stores. Most towns still have that. I think one of the reasons, the state limits the number of liquor permits, retail package stores per town based on your population. Woodbridge has 3 that are available, but the reason there's no liquor store in town is you can't get around the regulatory scheme to introduce a liquor store into your community because of the separation distance and, in my opinion, in particular, the separation distance as it pertains to residential uses. So, we're here because we have a contingent lease for 1,350 square feet. It's a modest site at the shopping plaza where I refer to the Solon restaurant is located at 245 Amity Road. There's a couple of vacant spaces there, and we'd like to bring this use to town and introduce a new building a new business into your community. I think from an economic development standpoint, there's some benefit there. I didn't see anything in your plan of conservation and development that looks to discouraging these types of uses. So I wouldn't say this change would be in any way consistent with the POCD. And I think it would, the residents of the town would now have the convenience of being able to buy a bottle of wine or a 6-pack of beer or their favorite spirit within your community and give that business to people in town and not have to go to outside towns in order to purchase, the bottle of wine. So for all of those reasons, that's why we're here. I did note that the Regional Planning Commission noted that there were no adverse intermunicipal impacts. I saw a letter from fellow attorney Dominic Thomas, who does a lot of zoning. He, and I share in part his thoughts that in general, the separation distance requirements maybe have outused their useful life and really don't provide any significant planning benefits. He's a resident of your town, so I know he's commented favorably. And we hope for all of those reasons that you look and act positively on the text change, and then we would then be back before you with a special exception because the regulations still require any retail package store to come back to you with the special exception. So you have the opportunity to look at, other health safety issues and specifically whether the site is appropriate for this use. And we would hope that you would find that we were, but your regulations, which would not be affected, still require any package store to come in by special exception. So you get another look at the specific proposal. If you approve the text change, we'd come back next month. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has.
So thank you very much, Attorney Pellegrino, for that presentation. I would like to first go to our public comment. And I note that I do see at least one hand raised from Michelle Riley. So I will welcome Chris to unmute our member of the public and remind that in the public comments sort of section again, just to repeat the rules that this is why we're here for your comments. You'll have 3 minutes to give your brief statements. Our commission members and the applicants are not going to answer your questions you raised, but as you saw from the previous one, we will discuss them and they will become part of the public record. And as a reminder to everyone, off the record communication on the merits of the application are prohibited. And so away we go. I see hands from Michelle Riley, and then next after that we'll have Kate Walker, but Michelle Riley first.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much. The regulations are there to protect the residents and their sense of small town neighborhoods. I realize that it is a mixed use area, but if this is changed for a particular site location, so the saloon plaza, if you will, I'm not sure exactly what that plaza is called, if it even has a name, and if that is the site, potential site for a liquor store, then I would like to go on public record and say that I am against it as a resident who lives behind that plaza. And my house is within 500 feet, and I think that that regulation should stay in place. If it's lifted, it will then allow the whole district to be possibly afflicted by a liquor store in their neighborhood, possibly right next door to their home. And that is not why we live in Woodbridge, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. Next, we have Kate Walker.
Yeah, it's interesting kind of hearing that point of view with it too. It's I'm more kind of leaning towards the other direction where actually I think it would be kind of nice having like a place to get a bottle of wine in our town. I do think there's a difference between, having a place like that, especially in like the saloon or the salon. I'm sure I'm pronouncing it wrong. That area. It's kind of like a big section with a restaurant there. I don't think anything would really affect it having like a nice wine store. I always have to go to like New Haven whenever I want to get anything, and feel like it kind of adds to our town a little bit. It builds up the business, and I don't know, probably make a little bit more money in taxes than giving it to New Haven. But I don't think there's anything wrong with it there. I definitely have an issue with liquor stores popping up everywhere, but I don't know if that's what you guys are talking about here. I think having something there would actually be nice for the town.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Walker, for your comment. Are there any other members of the public? It looks like we added another attendee, Douglas Gray.
Doug's related to the brewery.
Okay, thank you. Chris, you know who everyone is, or in front of them. Any other comments from the public before we transition to comments and questions from the commission members?
Do we need to recognize the comments that we received via email? And I guess some were in email and some were in our packets.
Great point, Kathleen. So seeing no other members of the public with their hands raised, I will note that we did receive written comments. Those were sent in to Chris Sullivan, and those are available on the website, and they did come in over the course of the past week or more, and including some that we received today, and those are also in front of us as commission members, those written comments, which Attorney Pellegrino referenced at least one of them. Attorney Pellegrino also referenced the letter dated November 17th from the Regional Planning Commission that noted that the proposed amendments do not appear to cause any negative intermunicipal impacts to the towns in the region. So those are the oral comments tonight, the written comments, which we've all received. And now to the commission members, do you have any questions for the applicant? Paul, go right ahead.
So in the spreadsheet you sent that gave regs of other towns regarding this issue, do you have any idea if these were changed to what they were, or have they been on their books for decades and decades?
Thank you, Commissioner Chef. Bernie Pellegrino for the record. My guess, and I've dealt with this regulation in other towns, my understanding of the history of this regulation statewide and therefore into municipal regulations is there was a state liquor control reg that had similar state statutory restriction. That state regulation was eliminated many, many years ago. But when towns adopted zoning regs, they, I think, carried over the language from the old state statute into their regulations. So most towns, when they adopted regs in the mid-50s, included some sort of a regulatory separation distance that mirrored the state statute. Some are still there as is. Other towns that I've worked in and know have changed and or eliminated that regulation from their regulatory framework over the course of the last 50 years. Hope that helps.
So and the next part was, so is it a trend over the years that municipalities have gone to feet between permits versus feet between specific entities like homes?
I think it's the trend is there's always been the feet between permits. That's always been there, pretty much has stayed there. Part of that is because the state regulates the number of liquor permits they'll give to every town. You are only permitted 3 based on your population, so there's not going to be an abundance of liquor stores coming. You can only get 3 permits in Woodbridge if you can find a place to put one. So the fear that was expressed earlier about this wave of liquor stores is not going to happen. But because there's limitations on the number of permits within each town, most towns have kept the separation distance between permits in place. So you try to spread out your liquor stores. I think the trend, however, is that the restrictions to other things like churches, schools, libraries, certainly residences, trend over the last 20 years is to eliminate those. And I know a number of the ones that are listed here have done so over that time period. Branford, Madison, I don't know if I listed East Haven. I'm not sure when Orange changed or if they ever had it, but they don't have it. So I think that's the trend, Commissioner.
Thank Thanks.
Other questions? I see Andrew. Is your hand raised? Andrew, I think.
Included.
Attorney Pellegrino, is there any size buffer that would be a reasonable restriction? For example, 100 feet between a liquor store and a residence? Would that allow a sufficient number of options within the zones that allow this use?
I'm the wrong guy to ask, because I think the entire separation distance, I'm more in the camp of Attorney Thomas on this point. I don't know if it really provides any planning benefit. I don't see the potential harm of a liquor store different than any other retail center. Your regulation requires or only permits them in the commercial zones. So I don't think it's true that it'd be rare that you'd have a liquor store right next door to a house. It's just unlikely the way your zoning is laid out. The distance between the site we're interested in and the closest resident is about, I think it's 200 and something feet. So, 200 feet works for us. We could live with that because that would allow us to do what we'd like to do for this site that we think is ideal for our use. It's in a site which, by the way, already has an on-site liquor consumption permit in the restaurant. So you can go to that site and have a margarita and sit in the restaurant and drink it with your dinner. I think what we're proposing is potentially less impactful, where you could go there, pick up a bottle of wine on the way home, and then have it for dinner. So, but I leave that to your planning. But 200, would be reasonable for our purposes in this particular instance. Help.
That's the only question I had, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Other commission members with questions or comments for the applicant? Well, folks are thinking, my only question is back to your helpful sort of list of other municipalities. And just wanted to confirm that this obviously isn't all 169. You didn't go through all 169 municipalities.
Yeah.
First of all. Second, of these, I only saw 2 that still had some sort of restriction related to residential areas, and that was Simsbury and Bethany. And of course, the Woodbridge ones that are issued here. Is that correct, or did I miss one?
Those are the only ones I saw.
And do you have a sense if there are other, I know this is a sampling of municipalities, but are there others out there that might still have a regulation like ours, or is that not something you know right now?
I don't think I can say nobody else does, but from what from the research we've done, I feel pretty comfortable that you are in the clear minority on this particular issue as it pertains to residential uses, by far.
Thank you. Other questions from commission members? And seeing none, but Attorney Pellegrino, I didn't give you an opportunity if there was something directly related to the public testimony that you heard that you wanted to react to. I think we just jumped right into our questions.
Well, I think I touched on one of the concern that Ms. Riley mentioned, that, there's going to be a liquor store right next to her house. unless it's a house in a non-conforming zone, these stores would have to be in commercial in those, really only in those 3 commercial zones that I mentioned. And as I also mentioned, there's only 3 available permits right now based on population to the town. So the number of liquor stores that potentially could come is really limited. And I agree with Mr. Walker. I think there's some benefits to residents to have the ability to stop in town on their way home from work, or if they're having some friends over to watch Notre Dame beat Clemson in the upcoming football playoff game, to get, some beers and watch the game. So I think that's a nice convenience for your residents, in addition to the potential economic benefits for economic development in the town.
Thank you, Attorney Pellegrino. Any last questions from commission members, not about college football?
Well, I just wanted to note that Attorney Pellegrino is incorrect, and Clemson will be thumping the Fighting Irish in a couple of weeks.
I tried.
Thank you.
I tried.
I know you did, Rob.
In all seriousness, thank you, though, to the applicant. Thank you to the public for your comments. I will now entertain a motion to close this public hearing, seeking to amend our section 3.3 HH3A, little subsection 1, the deletion of that little subsection about distance of residential to package stores. Do I hear a motion?
Moved.
So moved.
Thank you very much.
Was it seconded? We'll have maybe Paul moved, and Kathleen, would you like to second instead?
Sure.
All good. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on closing the public hearing? Hearing none, all in favor of closing the hearing, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? We have closed the public hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr.
Very
Chair.
good.
Thank you, members of the committee.
Thank you all. Chris, what's next? We're moving to receive our new business.
You're receiving that application. It needs to get, it's a series of applications. It's in the commission's past history that you just do one hearing on everything that's listed there. So if that's your choice, we could do it for your regular meeting in January. The amendment, I did query over to the Regional Planning Commission, Eugene, who is their staff member, but I haven't heard back from him because this would be an amendment to a zone that does not directly abut or is within 500 feet of another municipality, but I haven't heard back. So I'll send it over to them, and we just may get that comment back that there's no action necessary by them. In terms of the sediment erosion control and the earth removal fill permit, those are things that need to get typically referred to your consulting engineer, Jim Preedy, with Chris Colo Engineering. So we would do that.
And we would do that as part of this, setting this up for public hearing.
Setting this up, yep. So I would ship it off to them and ask them to have comment back before the hearing so that the applicant's engineer can respond to any comments that our consulting engineers might have.
Would it be, one of the materials that they submitted was that they're going to be doing a traffic impact and access study. Would it be appropriate to ask them the timing of that study? Because it seems to me doing any such study right now during the pandemic when traffic is so reduced is going to, I think it's just going to yield different results than it might have a year ago and that it might in a year from now. I know we can't predict the future, but is there a way to use, I don't know, is there a way for these people who are experts in this to somehow take that into account?
You have a traffic study that was submitted.
No, it says,
It will be. They're finalizing and having everything ready for you 2 weeks in advance of January, if that's when you schedule your public hearing date.
right, it says the report is scheduled to be available for review no later than mid-December, but they didn't submit it yet. So my question is there time to make this request of them, given that a traffic study done now is necessarily going to be different than normal traffic in the area?
They're submitting an application now. COVID may be around for another year.
I think what Kathleen is saying is that, is there a way to get a normalized traffic study of what happened in 2019, 18, 17, given that traffic patterns are so different than they were pre-pandemic?
I understand the question. There was a traffic study that was done when Woodbridge Village was proposed originally, which had retail on the bottom. Certainly, that's a question that we can ask the applicant to have their expert address. The last go round with this, you also engaged your own traffic expert to review the traffic study that was submitted. So it's something you can ask that way too.
And is that something that our on-call engineering folks could add to as they're doing their
No, we
review,
hired
or someone else?
we hired a traffic consultant that was different than the consulting engineer.
So, Kathleen, I appreciate it's an interesting question. Is there a way to adjust the traffic study to recognize the unusual circumstances that we're in because of COVID? So is that something that we can, in setting this down for hearing? First of all, I'm assuming we're aiming for the next regular meeting, which would be in January, correct?
Yes, with the understanding that you can always continue the hearing if you need to.
Okay. And right now, would it help if we had a motion and did this under discussion? I always forget whether we should be doing this according to Robert's rules.
It doesn't hurt to do a motion.
So a motion to schedule the New England Brewery Company's number of applications that were listed in the town plan and zoning notice of our meeting for 1710 Litchfield Turnpike to be scheduled for our regular January meeting, to also include review and comment by our engineer, and to request that the applicant address the traffic impacts of COVID. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
Mr. Chairman, can I just make up one other point? This also needs to get sent to your architectural review board, and then they have to comment back to you by January 4th.
And as amended, the motion to include referral to the architectural review board.
So I just want to be clear that, I mean, as Chris said, they've already enlisted or have put in the works a traffic study. I think we just want to make sure that the traffic study takes into account the potential differing situation today between what there might be in a or what there was in a non-pandemic period. That's just the clarification I wanted.
I think that's great, Kathleen. And through our motion setting them down for hearing, Chris can relay that to them directly, right, Chris?
Yes, I can.
Great. So I will not force anyone to repeat that motion. I will make that motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Andrew. Further discussion on the motion before us and the timing? Seeing none, all in favor of setting it down for that January regular meeting date, which Chris is Monday, January 4th. And for enlisting the help of our engineer to review, and the referral over to the Architectural Review Board, and a direction to the applicant to, in their traffic study, address, and their presentation to us of that traffic study to address the impacts of COVID. All in favor, say aye. Oh,
It's
sorry.
it's just worth clarifying that it's our regular meeting on the 4th, meaning the one starting at 7:30, not the one starting at 6.
Correct. The regular meeting starting at 7:30 on the 4th. Thank you, Kathleen. All
Sorry.
in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we will see them and all of the additional materials January 4th. Okay, Chris, should we move to our work session?
Please do.
Thank you. I guess we'll start with number 1, which is our Woodbridge Village Associates application to amend our zoning regulation amendments for their active adult community. And I open it up to commission members for discussion. Kathleen, I see your hand.
Yeah, I just don't know why it's PP. I mean, I know it's PP because the last one is OO, but under 3.3 EE, we list active adult communities. My suggestion would be that we renumber what is under 3.3 EE and we make number 1. I mean, that we need that we renumber and reorganize so that active adult communities, should it be passed, goes in the place in the regs where it's already listed in our table and where it fits because it's a type of congregate community. I don't understand why we wouldn't be able to do that. I know that's just a sort of a logistical structural thing.
So instead of having it be PP as its separate standalone, it would fit under EE. Apologies, I'm just flipping to the page of where EE.
I mean, I don't know if that would work. I mean, EE. So if you look at the table, which begins on page
19.
there, thank you. It begins on page 19. EE is listed on page 21 though. Under EE, it has congregate communities, active adult community, and active adult community mixed use. And if you look above at 3.3.cc, which is residential, it has 3 subheadings: single family residential, 2-family accessory dwelling. Is there a way to fit this with the other 3 categories under EE so it just all appears in the right place of the reg? It just seems to me that it's odd to move it to PP just because, well, PP isn't actually the next heading available. There's 1 or 2 in the middle that are available for new uses, but I don't know if there's any, regulation that says we can't fit this in under EE, adjust the heading the way it was done for 3.3.cc.
I'm not sure that EE pertains to active adult communities. Kathleen, as I'm reading it, 1A I or 1A1 defines it as an assisted personal care living unit. It says shall include the following: assisted personal care living unit. I don't know that we're talking about things that will necessarily be assisted personal care living units.
But what I'm saying is that we change EE to a heading that is something that's all encompassing, like congregate communities. And then 1 becomes the existing congregate, something becomes the existing congregate communities, and we change all the headings underneath so that they work. 3.3.EE2 becomes active adult community, and it's what has been proposed here. Should we accept it? And 3.3 EE3 becomes active and adult community at whatever time we make, or the commission makes a recommendation about that. It just seems odd to split something that we put in the regs in one place out into another place. I mean, these are all, we could just call 3.3 EE adult communities. One becomes congregate, and then we adjust all the bullets underneath so that it's accurate. 2 becomes, again, active adult communities. 3 becomes, it's just organizational. It just seems logical to me.
So Kathleen, I get that it seems logical. Chris, is that raise any problems, or maybe that's even a question for Marion Buick, our attorney? I think it's a good one just for, I don't even know where our current description of active adult 55 plus mixed use with the 20% of the first floor, I can't find it very easily.
It's not here. That's the whole problem.
Right. There's things in the
There's things in the table that aren't even described.
right.
Okay,
They're anticipated, but so that's the thing. They're anticipated additions to the regs, and every time we get an addition to the regs, are we going to keep adding it at the end and not in the section where it really belongs?
So Kathleen, I like that proposal. It does seem easy to give a general topic for 3.3 EE, adult communities. Is that?
I mean, we can look into whatever the terminology is, and I'm very familiar with the type of reformatting necessary for this sort of thing. But it just seems logical to me. And I'll point out, while you're all on that page on the table, that we have reinvented the alphabet, and we go from GG to JJ to HH. So that's a Scrivener's error that needs to be adjusted at the same time.
Thank you, Kathleen, for that close read. So I think that's should be a fairly easy adjustment, Chris, correct?
You just need to give me a little bit of time to get this reg I understand what we need to do, but I can't do this in a day.
Chris, if you give me the Word doc, I'll do it for you to proof.
Okay.
Thank you, Kathleen. Right. Any other questions, comments, thoughts on the proposal?
I have another one, if you're not hearing from me.
No, not at all. Go ahead, Kathleen.
In section 4, I think there's some words missing. It's in the last part of the sentence. Common interest community as defined in the Connecticut General Statutes and may include, but not be required to be associated with commercial uses. There's a couple words missing.
Yeah.
No, there's nothing missing. There are words missing. No. Two separate concepts.
It shall not be required to associated. But
so it could be and may include, but should not be required to have, associated commercial uses.
Oh, I get what it says. There's okay. And may include, but shall not be required to, may include associated commercial uses. I understand it, Marianne. Okay. Thank you. I missed the comma. Laugh at me all you want.
Any other comments on the proposal? Paul, looks like you're about to.
So are we commenting on the substantive parts, or
Yes.
Are we looking at the proofing parts still?
We can move to the substantive parts.
We can talk about Clemson if you want, Paul.
You could. That with Trevor Lawrence back, they're going to thump Notre Dame, but what do I know? So I'm generally okay with the concept. I had a couple of, in section 1, I'm not comfortable with the 19-year-old age or over living in the development. The minimum acreage thing just doesn't sit well with me. It just seems kind of random and arbitrary, and I'd want to have more discussion on that. And then I forgot who raised the issue in section 4 about subletting and how that would shake out. Although, again, I'm generally okay with this concept, but I'm not okay with all the details.
So, Paul, what do you want to start with?
Well, count with my fingers. So let's start with number 1.
Okay.
Number 1, the C part about you can be 19 living with your, I guess, parent in there. I don't know what's done elsewhere, so I will certainly claim ignorance on that. It just, it's funny with me that we're going to have a 55 and over community, and maybe there's a bunch of college kids who are living there as well. Just as a weird, I can't believe that's what the trend is around.
So I'll just say that I was on the commission all those years ago when this first came to the commission, and my introduction to TP&Z was meetings until midnight. So thank you, Rob, for calling them earlier than that. But we had discussion about this, Paul, and we actually realized that if you look at friends around you, somebody only has to have a child when they're 36 or 37 to then be past the age of 55 to have a 19-year-old or older who still might be living with them, who's in college. And I mean, I have friends who have children who are 19 or older who are living with them in their homes. What this does is it permits the family to downsize potentially and be in a place that might suit them better, and their child is either able to live with them or to come home from college and live with them. And so I actually think it makes sense. It is purposely an older child who wouldn't be in the school system so that this community is indeed an adult community, but it meets the needs of, it might meet the needs of some families better if they can downsize sooner based on, their needs as a family, and still have that adult child living with them for a few years until that adult child moves out fully. And then the parents of the family, those who are 55 or older, now have this home in a adult active community. Active adult community.
Other comments are on this topic of the child 19 or older.
Paul, it is a child as opposed to a group of children.
Paul, anything else on that topic that you would like to react to? What was your next?
Section 8, letter A, the minimum acreage. So I guess it's a philosophical change. Do we want to limit an active adult, AAC, I keep thinking about the American Athletic Conference, active adult community so if we limit it to minimum of 6 acres, what we're saying is we are only permitting 1 in town.
There was another one that could qualify in the Dev 1.
Right, but there's already there's a commercial building on the property. I mean, yes, I agree. Right. Yeah.
Right, so the question is,
Right there, right.
so the question is, do we want potentially 6 parcels of 5 acres that could have an active adult community on them, all in the Dev 1 district?
And just so we're all talking about the same thing, that would simply be keeping the minimum, or it would be a question of the minimum acreage at 5 acres versus 6 acres. No one wants to go any lower than 5 acres. I'm not seeing anyone suggesting that.
I just think we need to keep in mind I get that Dev 1 is mixed use, but part of that mixed use is residential. And I think we need to be mindful of those single family houses or even multi-family houses already in that area. And how much do we want to surround those houses with a plethora or more than, 2 through 7 of active adult communities.
Other reactions? So I'll offer one. In general, particularly in this area and for this particular zoning amendment, which requires the service by public water and sewer, to me, density is not a bad thing. I'm in generally of the view that, again, for folks who like the opportunity to stay in town and to downsize and potentially have the Woodbridge Village be a place where you can live and walk to a restaurant or easily get, into town on public transit. It seems like a potential positive. But I do recognize, Kathleen, the concern about how many units, which is this other part of that section, that density at 10 units per acre.
Dev 1 is not a big district.
But it encompasses most of the area between the main roads, right? Between Amity and Litchfield Turnpike. Any other comments or reactions? And then, Paul, your last one.
I think maybe Jeff brought it up. In number 4, how, and I don't know if it's a regulation question or it would happen if they came back for a application, but I was thinking about the subletting or the how would subletting apply, or an Airbnb be permitted in number if we go ahead and change the reg.
Paul, that was me that did raise that. It's after the word general statutes, it's the remaining language and may include, but not should be required to associate commercial uses. So I was trying to understand how that fit in all together with the units. So Attorney Nuff just said, look, that's just covering for like a small coffee house or a very small retail establishment. But in my mind, I did think that could be used more generally. I had a concern that it could be used more widely, that the phrase associated commercial uses could include other things, such as a rental or a sublease. And he said verbally that wasn't the case. That's what he said. I will say this is on a special exception basis, so I'm sure we could visit that issue if anything came back in, right? So we would have the opportunity to look at the plans and the site plans and what folks were doing when it came back in, so we could just make sure that was true.
And correct me if I'm wrong, did we have a discussion about things like Airbnb or VRBO when we were talking about the proposed bed and breakfast? Didn't that come up in our? And I don't remember exactly what we concluded about what was allowed or not in terms of those types of sort of new modes of renting your house.
You were gonna go back and revisit Airbnbs.
Right. Currently, they're not permitted in Dev 1. They're only permitted in T3C, T3D, T3DD.
If you need to go through a special exception process, is that a time where those types of restrictions could be added on subleasing, renting VRBOs? I'm sort of asking.
They could.
Paul, other questions or reactions?
Nope, I covered mine.
Other members of the commission? So I'm not seeing or hearing any. Do we have any interest in adjusting the minimum acreage size from where it currently stands at 6 acres?
I guess I'd like to see it at 5.
Any other reactions to the 5 or 6?
I like it at 6 because I'm worried about density down there in an area where we have already a lot of residences, and I just don't want the people who live in that area to feel crowded out or to feel like that the area around them is going to become so very different than it is now. I like the idea of bringing in some active adult communities. I just don't want to make that whole area Dev 1 active adult communities.
So at the 6 acres, as a practical matter, Kathleen, how many areas would that be? Like how many units would, how many developments could they put in at 6 versus 5?
Well, Attorney Nuff said there's 5 other parcels that could qualify at 5 acres. Only one other could qualify at 6, but it's one that already has a commercial enterprise on it. But of course, that can change.
Right. Okay.
I don't feel strongly enough about it to, I think Kathleen makes a valid point about the fact of the way that folks who live in the Woodbridge Village already feel. Certainly they made that clear in previous commission hearings, and when we were undertaking a proposed revision, wholesale revision to the regulations, and I certainly was present and part of the commission at a time when I definitely heard a lot of very valid concern expressed by folks who live there, that there's been a neglect in terms of infrastructure, et cetera. And so I think it weighs in favor of being a little bit more conservative about what we allow there. So the 6 probably makes sense for that purpose.
Other reactions from commission members? So, Yoni, I will react a bit. Unfortunately, those other hearings, those other past sort of events aren't in front of us right now in this proceeding. So I'm not sure how we can. We've had two members of the public, or one member of the public, actually come and talk about this particular application. Chris, unless I'm missing anything that was in a written comment or into the record. So,
No, you only had one comment.
and to me, the potential for some density where you would have, again, the special exception process to review, the size, form, et cetera, when it's coming in front of you is, this is the rule, the fundamental sort of rules of what is allowable. It's not allowing anything in particular. It's just opening up the opportunity set. And to me, it's, a part of town that has the infrastructure, at least, for somewhat more dense development. And to me, there isn't a huge difference between two opportunities at 6 and 7 total, I guess, opportunities at 5 acres. So I was leaning towards the 5 acres.
I mean, considering the fact that the likelihood of some entity coming in wanting to actually develop is pretty, we got to get that additional hurdle too.
Yes. Which, again, this particular applicant was here however many years ago, 13 years ago. And none of us is saying any of these things are easy to develop. And for all we know, there's something better on one of those sites than others, and having at least a slightly larger opportunity set.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it could also work the other way, that people come and make a request because it would be a special exception to build one of these on a 5-acre division instead of 6.
Mm-hmm.
But Kathleen, I guess maybe I misunderstood that. If it's at 6, they can't come in for a special exception to try to do it on 5. They'd have to get a variance.
So they can get a variance.
Other than the acreage, are there any other things that we should debate about with the regulations? Are folks satisfied with our 19-year-olds living there, and are the 10 units per acre in terms of maximum density, and the clarification of what additional associated commercial use might be there? Or are we all fine on those elements of it? So I'm not hearing anything other than this question of should it be 5 or 6 acres. We seldom come to this sort of question. Is this something, Chris, I guess I should put to a vote on the 5 or 6 acres?
I don't know. Marianne is here. You could ask Marianne. I would suggest that you do that because she has more expertise than I.
Good evening. So someone needs to make a motion.
Right, we can
And
move it
then-
to 6, which is what it is.
And then second the motion, and then you have a vote.
And if it's turned down, then somebody moves to amend it to 5, and we vote and see.
Correct.
Right. So since and just before, are there any other sort of issues that we wanted to hash out before we move forward? Seeing none, who would like to make a motion for the language of the proposed amendment as it is, subject to Kathleen's very good sort of renumbering and insertion in the right place in the reg. So in the EE section, as will be figured out by, so do I hear a motion?
I'm happy to move that.
Is there a second?
Question, since I missed the first part of the hearing, due to technological difficulties, should somebody be seated for me on this?
Chris, this is Jeff Kennedy. Am I voting or is Lawrence voting here?
If Larry was not present for the entire hearing,
Mm-hmm.
then he should have somebody sitting in his place.
Okay, so is that me procedural wise?
You are the only alternate that we have.
Excellent. Okay. So then I'm voting for Larry in this case. Fine. I'll second the motion for 6 acres and acceptance as submitted.
So it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none or hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Aye. It looks like the ayes have it at 4 to, actually, any abstentions? I guess Larry is abstaining. Is that correct?
No, he's not abstaining.
Oh, he's sorry. Thank you. So the motion passes by a vote of 4 to 2.
And I'm sorry, just to clarify, who did not vote in favor? That was you, Rob, and Yanni?
No, me and Paul. I'm sorry, in favor or Chris?
In favor were Kathleen, Jeff, Paul, and Yoni. No, sorry, not Paul, Andy and Yoni.
And the opposed were Rob and Paul.
Oh.
Great. So the motion passes. So this is now, we're off to
You need
Kristen.
to set an effective date, and you also need to find that it was in compliance with your town plan and the state plan.
Okay. When do we normally set the effective dates for?
I need at least 2 weeks.
Might as well make it January 1st.
Sounds good.
Or January 4th is the first business day after the holiday, the 1st.
Even better.
Okay. So, Chris, do we need a motion on that or no?
Yes, please.
So a motion is and seconded.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded. Can we do them all at once to have the
Sorry,
effective?
who moved? I was looking down. I was not looking up.
Paul Schatz moved and Jeff Kennedy seconded to have the effective date be the first business day of the new year, January 4th. And we have, and that also is, we're moving and seconding the determination that it's in conformance with our plan of conservation and development. Is that?
Yes.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Alrighty. Chris, for future reference, should I try to do all those?
It should all get rolled into one, yeah.
Okay, I will try to do better. So can we move to Attorney Pellegrino's application?
I'll say aye, yes, please.
Yes.
Okay, no objection, I guess, to that. Thank you all, though, for our discussion on the Woodbridge Village Associates. On Attorney Pellegrino's application, anyone want to start us off with comments, thoughts, reactions? Sure, Kathleen, go right ahead.
Oh, I think that if we approve this amendment, at the same time, we should amend ourselves the regs to include a distance required between permits. If you look at the data that was shared with us, I counted it up as people were talking. 25 of the 37 municipalities that were reviewed, even if they don't have other restrictions, have a requirement of a certain number of feet between permits. Woodbridge is allocated 3 permits by the state. This would be the first of those 3 to be granted. In recognition of the Woodbridge resident on Landon Street who spoke against this because she's worried about too many of these such establishments in her backyard, I think we need to recognize that sentiment and just guarantee that there wouldn't be a second such establishment within, or too close to the other one. So I don't know if I'm just going to make that recommendation.
So Kathleen, as you were talking, I was trying to quickly read the other parts of 33HH, subsection 3 on the distance requirements. So it is not already in there. That's like other things like churches and parks and libraries and teen centers are already in there.
Now, I understand that might pose problems given the new application we have before us tonight that we'll discuss in January. But that part of their recommendation is that we add to the regs the word brew pubs in 3A, such that they would be allowed and would be so that would be allowed. It wouldn't be one of the 3 places with permits that would be within a certain distance.
Kathleen, I'm so what you're saying is put a footage buffer between liquor store permittees in Woodbridge that is separate from anything labeled brew pub.
Just, I mean, you can end it at, I was just acknowledging that there's a complication, that there's a brew pub that has made that NEPCO has made an application. 3 permits for liquor stores are permitted in Woodbridge according to the state of Connecticut. All I'm saying is that let's put some sort of limitation in about how far apart, about some sort of distance requirement between them, so we don't get all 3 of them in this plaza, all of them in the backyard of people who live on Landon Street.
Seems reasonable to me.
So the thing that I'm concerned about is I wouldn't want to foreclose the brew pub, and the brew pub is not a liquor store.
It's a different liquor license. So what you're being asked to change is regarding package stores. So you can have a separation, you can have a distance between package stores, which would not affect breweries or brew pubs, which are exempt from any distance requirements.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you, Rob. I don't want to get in the way of another application, but I'm just trying to hear the concerns that were raised earlier.
What's for lack of a better word, objection to having hypothetically, 2 liquor stores in the same plaza? Forgetting about the competition, I guess I'm I'm missing that. What's the concern, the worry?
I don't know that there's any concern, but more importantly, I don't think it would ever happen.
Yeah.
Not in this town.
And it won't happen if we put some sort of distance requirement in. All I'm saying is that 2/3 of the towns that were reviewed by Attorney Pellegrino regarding distance requirements, 2/3 of them have a distance requirement between permits. I'm just saying, I think we should consider it.
And within that list, it looked like the majority of them had a 1,500-foot requirement when they had requirements between permits, though there were some that were at 500 foot.
There's one at 2,000. I mean, I'm saying to suggest it, if we make a motion, could be included as, and we should investigate the distance requirement between permits. Because I think that would need, because it's a change in the regs, if, am I right, Chris, that would have to come before that would have to be brought before a public hearing as well?
This is not something that was proposed as part of this, and I believe it probably would have to come before its own public hearing.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Kathleen, I'm sorry.
No, I'm going to say, I think, I mean, that's my understanding as well. I am just saying that I think that we should include that consideration in any motion we make. So at least that one person who shared their view with us about having an establishment in the backyard understands that we heard that concern and will look to address it.
So Kathleen, I like that there's something elegant about that solution, because I think technically, yes, the applicant only asked for the simple deletion of one section of this part of our zoning code, but I think in theory, because they've opened this part of the code, one might be able to reasonably do an approval with conditions. So yes, we approve your request for the text amendment with a condition. And the question is, I think in theory, you might be able to go all the way into saying adding the distance, but I think I think I like your path better to do it a little more deliberately and explore what the right sort of number is for a new separation of package store licenses. So any other discussion on what we're heading towards as a potential motion to approve the deletion of that small section of HH 3A little 1, the distance requirement from package stores and residential uses, with the condition that our commission will take up at a later date a review of the distance requirements in this section between permittees and go through the proper process of exploring that amendment to our regulations. Does that sound reasonable?
If that was a motion, I second it.
Well, it would only be a motion if we're including that it is conforming with our plan of conservation and development, and we will have an effective date for this amendment on January 4th, the first business day of the new year. Then that would be a motion. And I would have made it, and it's now been Kathleen, would you like to second it?
Sure.
So moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion before us? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes. Chris, did that all come through okay?
I'll listen to what you said again, because I didn't get it all, but that's okay. That's why we record stuff.
Okay.
And I can have proof it, so.
Great. Thank you, and appreciate folks for sticking with us, and Kathleen always for both good close reads and creative approaches to things. Okay, anything I know, Chris, you put on the list of the work session to Orchard Road, but I'm not sure why it's on there.
It's just a placeholder. It's just me being anal. Sorry.
And that's fine as a placeholder, but we're going to deal with that in the new year.
Yep.
And anything, Andrew, to briefly report on from the South Central Regional Council of Governments?
Yeah, there was a meeting, give me a moment, brought it with me somewhere. Okay. There was a meeting on the 12th of November. Two of the items were matters pertaining to the town of Woodbridge. We've received both of those reports already. Neither one was found to be an issue with respect to intermunicipal impact or impact upon the environment of the Long Island Sound. There was a proposed zoning regulation amendment pertaining to industrial expansion district in Wallingford. Also found not to have an intermunicipal impact or adverse environmental impact. There was another Wallingford application or amendment pertaining to restaurant parking. Similar result with respect to that. And a proposed zoning regulation amendment from the town of North Haven from a private applicant. Also found to have no adverse impacts. There is another meeting this Thursday. And that's the extent of my report.
Thank you, Andrew. Chris, anything to report as the zoning enforcement officer?
I've had a few complaints about campers, and so I've sent out letters, and I'm meeting with one of the people that I sent a letter to on Wednesday. So getting some complaints. This happens this time of year when the leaves come off the trees and people see things that they haven't seen before.
But you campers, you mean people in tents or the kind you pull with a truck?
The kind you pull with a truck that are in the front yard or in the side yard and not screened.
Okay.
Andrew, that was my exact question as well, as a tent camper. Anything else, Chris?
I gave you no minutes, so I'm abbreviating your meeting by not having you have to look at those.
So, Chris, you did give us the draft schedule for.
Oh, yes, please look at that.
And a question, I know we've talked about changing the time.
Mm-hmm.
Though on January 4th, we've already chosen 7:30 as our start time. But is this the opportunity going forward to change our start time, with the exception of that January 4th meeting?
Yes, it would be. If you wanted to start at a different time, you could.
Yeah, I think I had spoken months ago that there's really no reason to start as late as 7:30. What does everybody think about 6 or 6:30?
Kathleen, you're muted, so.
As long as that doesn't mean we still go until 9 or 9:30 on a regular basis, I support that, Andy.
Then I'll make a motion that in 2021 and this is subject to your availability at that time, Christine. But my motion would be that we begin our meetings at 6 p.m.
With the exception of the January 4th meeting, which we've already.
Beginning the February 2021 meeting.
So it's been moved for 6 p.m. Any second?
Nobody likes it.
I'll second it.
Sure.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion, Paul? That seemed to have gotten a reaction.
Yeah, I mean, 6 is tough for a variety of work and religious reasons. I'd love if we could do 6:30.
Are you offering a friendly amendment to the motion?
I am. I don't want to say, you know, I don't want to push back because I want everyone to be able to find the best time for them. 6 is I know for me it's just that's like the worst time of the day for me, but I'll do my best if that's what the group decides.
I'm
Andrew?
fine with 6:30 as well.
6:30 works better for me, if that's okay.
I think it looks like a friendly amendment to 6:30 seems okay with folks.
Good.
So it's been amended. So now the motion is to have our regular monthly meetings starting in the February 1st, 2021 meeting to start at 6:30. It's been moved.
I have a question, Rob. Chris, I thought you once said that it was at 7:30 because the room was used earlier when we were actually live in person. Did I misunderstand that?
There's nobody using the town hall at all now at the moment, so I don't recall anybody being in there.
Okay.
At 6, occasionally there was a meeting, but I think that was when there were special meetings that we were calling.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
I never recall in the last 4 years of there being a meeting before our meeting on Mondays.
You know what? Hang in a second. Where's Pua? Pua would know.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Wait a minute. Unmute. Pua.
I don't think we're hearing Pua.
Yes. So the short question is, to the best of your knowledge, there was no meeting before us on the first Monday of the month. Okay.
Okay. So thank you both for that clarification. So it looks like moved and seconded to have our meetings from February 2021 onward start at 6:30. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So we are from February onward at 6:30 p.m.
So Chris, the only thing I noticed on the sheet, if that's actually what's posted, the explanation of the first asterisks, it needs to say the July meeting and not the September meeting.
I corrected it after I sent it through, so it's
Okay. So I think we've come to the end. A motion to adjourn? So moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. So thank you to Chris for getting us all organized and tonight, and thank you all for our meeting tonight and for sticking with it. Really appreciate it.
Happy holidays to all of you.
And happy holidays to all of you. Thank you.
Happy
Chris.
holidays, everyone.
And a safe new year, we hope.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.